The Diamond Sutra, Vajra Chedika Prajnaparamita Sutra, Part 4. Again and again, Anand goes and narrates the sutra and continues the thread of fine-tuning the small things that Buddha is mindful. It is an exercise how a master is mindful and how a disciple can learn the art of being mindful of the small things. This is the significance of this sutra. Once again, any other time when I get a chance, I will speak on mindfulness in general about various Buddhas. In Sufi path, they do not talk about mindfulness. This is on the surface. It may be said that mindfulness is the way of Buddha, not that of Sufis, not that of any of the Sufi masters, but that is not true. Mindfulness is the very essence of all Buddhas, all the enlightened masters, all the sheikhs, whether we accept it in that way or not. And for a keen seeker, it is important that we know the thread of awareness, thread of mindfulness remains at the core of every single master. I will speak on the mindfulness of the masters in general. So for the time being, we continue with the sutras as Anand narrates it again and again, and mindfully fixing his attention in front of him, he sat, and mindfully fixing his attention in front of him, he sat. Then many monks approached to where the Lord was. And then many monks approached to where the Lord was, saluted his feet with their heads, saluted his feet with their head, thrice walked around him to the right and sat down on one side, thrice walked around him to the right and sat down on one side. What is the significance of walked around him to the right? Said that when you are going to attend the funeral of anyone and you have to offer, it is customary that you offer your prayers for the departing soul, and that time the person should stand either on the right side or at the head side. More preferably on the right side of the deceased person, and then offer your prayers, be it Fatiha, be it verses from Holy Quran or from Bhagavad Gita. You can, if you are following the verses from Holy Quran, then Inna Allahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un. Inna Allahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un from Holy Quran. And then there is another Ya Ilahi hibs ima waqt murdan kijiyo, Hazrat Mere Kalale Parsa ke vaste. Ya Ilahi hibs ima. Hibs means to remember. Ima means faith, the trust. Hibs ima waqt murdan kijiyo, at the time of death, keep my trust, keep my faith secured. It is only you who can do that. Ya Ilahi hibs ima waqt murdan kijiyo, Hazrat Mir Kalale Padshah ke vaste, in the name of Hazrat Amir Kalal Raziyallahu Ta'ala. Padshah means the king. Amir Kalale, Amir is because it is in the poetic form. The name of the master Hazrat Amir Kalal Raziyallahu Ta'ala is given as Amir Kalale Padshah ke vaste. Amir Kalale Padshah ke vaste. Ya Ilahi, O benevolent God, restore my trust at the moment when the soul is leaving the body. This is the one of the couplet from the Shajara Sharif. Shajara Sharif means this was descended on the Maulvi Shah Abdul Ghani Khan Raziyallahu Ta'ala, and it was given as a prayer. It has the couplets for each and every master, starting from Holy Prophet Hazrat Payghambar Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to the current master. And the couplet about each one of these masters, and this is considered as a sacred prayer in the Naqshbandi order. If you are following that path, you stand up on the right side of the deceased one and holding your hands in a prayer, you offer your awareness that your awareness is totally, your tawajjuh, your energy field is going to the deceased one, and you offer your prayer. If you are following the Hindu path, you can recite the couplet from the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita and continue that awareness. Nainam chindant shastrani, nainam dahati pavaka, na chainam kledayanti apo, na soshilati maruta. Fire cannot burn it, weapons cannot cut it, air cannot dry it. What is that? That which is indestructible, that remains unborn. And at the end, at the beginning of the journey of life, it enters the body, and at the end, that space exits the body. Lucky are those in whom this inner space expands to become the entire being, and its light begins to manifest. So there is a particular significance on standing on the right side. To ask a question to a Buddha needs a certain attitude, certain way. Only then you will receive the answer. It is not that Buddha will not give the answer. You can ask very disrespectfully. Buddha will still respond. However, in that state of disrespectfulness, you will not receive. You will not receive the answer. It depends. The answer depends upon you, the way you ask the question, the inner preparation of the disciple, that he is ready to listen, rather than he is trying to agree with certain things and disagree with certain things. The master has to be accepted in totality. However, in that state of disrespectfulness, you will not receive the answer. Therefore, it is not a question that only you are respectful. Will Buddha give the answer? Buddha will give the answer anyways. But if you are not respectful, humble, respective and feminine, you will not receive the answer. It is the femininity that helps to receive. The receptivity comes in a state of femininity. The answers are received in a state of receptivity and femininity. How you ask the question determines whether you will be able to receive the answer or not. How you ask, in what mood, are you receptive? Are you just curious? Are you asking the question out of your accumulated knowledge? Or is your question innocent? Are you asking just to test whether this man knows or not? Are you asking from a state of knowledge or from a state of knowing? Are you humble and surrendered? Are you ready to receive the gift if it is given to you? Will you be open? Will you welcome it? Will you take it to your heart? Will you allow it to become seed in your heart? To ask a question to a Buddha is not to ask a question to a professor or a politician. Then only will be the answer reach you. Only then will you be benefited by it. The sutra continues, then many monks approached to where the Lord was, saluted his feet with their heads, thrice walked around him to the right and sat down on one side. Walking thrice is symbolic of three bodies. The first round is for the physical body, the body that we can see, which is available to the sense and to the outer world of objects and beings. The physical body of Buddha is also beautiful. It is the shrine where God abides. It is the shrine where the emptiness abides. So the first round is the salutation for the first body, the physical body. The second round is for the bliss body. And the third round is for the Buddha body, the truth body. The physical body, the bliss body, and the truth body. These are the three realms. These three bodies, these three rounds are symbolic of something else as well. In Buddhism, we speak of three shelters or three refuges. I take refuge in Buddha. Buddham Sharanam Gacchami. Gacchami comes from the word Gach, means to go or to come. I come to the shelter of a Buddha. Buddham Sharanam Gacchami. I take refuge in Buddha. The second, I take refuge in the Sangha, the congregation, the commune. Sangham Sharanam Gacchami. And the last, I take refuge in Dhammam. Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami. This is a great mantra. Buddham Sharanam Gacchami. Sangham Sharanam Gacchami. Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami. Buddham Sharanam Gacchami. Sangham Sharanam Gacchami. Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami. These three rounds are symbolic of these as well. When a person comes to a Buddha to ask anything, he has to take a refuge that I do not know. I come to your shelter. You know the answer. So you have to be ready and with that understanding that Buddha knows the answer. And only he can dispel the ignorance and the darkness that abides in me. He has to have this state of mind that I am falling in tune with Buddha. and that I am ready to vibrate in the same wavelength, I take shelter in Buddha. Buddham Sharanam Gacchami. You are my shelter. I come to you as a disciple. I come to you knowing that I do not know. I come to you garbed in my innocence. If ignorance has the garb of innocence, it is a beauty. And if ignorance is garbed in cunningness, then it has the ugliness. I come to you knowing that I do not know. I come to you garbed in my innocence. I bow down to you. I recognize that you know and I do not. So I am ready to receive whatever you think I am ready to be given. I take shelter in Sangha, the communion, the congregation. Remember, one Buddha is only representative of all the Buddhas of the past and the future. The moment they drop, the river merges with the ocean, it becomes oceanic. Enlightenment or Buddhahood means the individual river is now part of the whole, part of the totality. It has become total. From the total it has come one day to attain to fruition, and now it has become once again total, attained to its totality. One Buddha is only a representative of all the Buddhas of the past and the future, of all the traditions. One Buddha is the door to all Buddhas. You can call Buddhas the Christs or Krishnas. It does not make any difference. These are different names given by the different tradition to express one thing, that the river has become ocean, the drop has become ocean now. A drop that this person was a moment ago is now ocean, is no more individual. So the first refuge is in the Buddha who is just in front of you. And the second refuge is in all the Buddhas, the Sangha, the commune, the congregation of Buddhas, the past, present and future, through this door. Through the door of the current Buddha you enter the Buddhas of the past and the Buddhas that are yet to happen. And the third refuge is in the Dhamma, the essential being that makes a man Buddha. It is the essential core of Dhamma that makes an individual a Buddha. That art of awakening is Dhamma, the religion, the art of awakening. At that time, now the sutra continues, at that time the Venerable Subhuti came to the assembly and sat down. At that time, the Venerable Subhuti came to the congregation and sat down. Subhuti is one of the great disciples of Buddha. Then he rose from his seat, says Anand, and again he repeats the whole thing. Remember, Subhuti is also no ordinary person. He is almost a Buddha, just on the verge of it. Any moment he is going to become a Buddha. So Anand repeats again. Then he rose from his seat, put his upper robe over one shoulder, placed right knee on the ground, bent forth his folded hands towards the Lord, and said to the Lord, "It is wonderful, O Lord, it is exceedingly wonderful. O well gone, how much the Bodhisattvas, the great beings, have been helped with the greatest help by the Tathagata. How then, O Lord, should one who has set out in the Bodhisattva vehicle stand? The great beings have been helped with greatest help by the Bodhisattva. How then, O Lord? How then, O Lord, should one who has set out in the Bodhisattva vehicle stand? How progress, how control the thoughts, how progress, how control the thoughts. Subhati is almost close to Buddha. He is a Bodhisattva. I had mentioned earlier that there are several stages. The terms that are used in the discipline of transcendence of Buddha. The Angamini, the Shrodhpan, the Skridgamini, and the Bodhisattva. And thereafter, the moment Bodhisattva disappears, he becomes Buddha. Angamini, Shrodhpan, Skridgamini, and Bodhisattva. Subhati is a Bodhisattva. Bodhisattva means one who is ready to become Buddha. One who is ready to become a Buddha. One who has come almost close to it. One step more and he will be a Buddha. One step more. The river is at the verge of merging with the ocean. One moment before it is a river and next moment it becomes oceanic. Bodhisattva means the Bodhi essence, the Bodhi being, ready 99 degrees, and on the 100th mark he will evaporate, and on the 100th mark he will evaporate. But a Bodhisattva is one who tries to remain a little longer at 99 degrees so that he can help out of his compassion. He knows once he has jumped the 100-degree mark, he is gone. He is gone forever. Gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate Bodhisattva. The Bodhisattva has disappeared at the 100th mark and has entered into the indomitable realm of Buddhas. At 99 degrees there comes tremendous compassion. Compassion arises in Bodhisattva. Once he was ignorant, stumbling in darkness, and now he has seen the light. He would like to help as many people along the path that may come in the contact. It is a Bodhisattva song, Bodhisattva verse. In the barren soils of thy inner sanctum, in the barren soils of thy inner sanctum, oft do I use the manure of compassion. Oft do I use the manure of compassion. Then one day seed of awakening I sow. Then one day seed of awakening I sow. With the rain of thy infinite bliss. With the rain of thy infinite bliss, the seed shall sprout one day. The seed shall sprout one day. And then reckoning shall reap the fruits at the dawn of new awakening. And then reckoning shall reap the fruits at the dawn of new awakening. He knows once he has jumped the 100-degree mark, he is gone forever. He is gone beyond. Gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate Bodhisattva. Then he is gone and gone beyond and beyond, never to return. Then it will be very difficult to make contact with the people who live on this shore, because people are not aware and ready and open. There is a particular Urdu poetry ये क्या राज है साकिए मस्त बेखुद कि अब तूने चश्मे इनायत डाली। The ignorant one says, what is the secret, O beloved one? ये क्या राज है साकी? साकी means the mystical brewer. ये क्या राज है साकी? ये मस्त बेखुद कि you are intoxicated and lost in your own bliss and joy. कि अब तूने चश्मे इनायत डाली, that your glance of grace is no more available. ये क्या राज है सा कि ये मस्त बेखुद, ये क्या राज है सा कि ये मस्त बेखुद कि अब तूने चश्मे इनायत हटा ली। Now there is no more glance of grace. The reply comes in, जरा अपने चश्मे हकीकी से देखो। Now you look at your chashma means the vision. Hakiki means truth. Look at the circumstance, the situations, look around through that eye of truth, through that truth vision. जरा अपने चश्मे हकीकी से देखो, न ये जाम खाली न वो जाम खाली। जाम means a particular dose of mystic of wine. न ये जाम खाली, neither this realm is empty nor that. ये क्या राज है सा कि ये मस्त बेखुद कि अब तूने चश्मे इनायत हटा ली। वही मैं कदा है, वही मैं कदा है, मगर सुना सुना। वही मैं कदा है, everything is the same but there is something missing in it. मगर सुना सुना, सुना means everything is gone, is forlorn. वही मैं कदा है मगर सुना सुना। इनायत का रंग आज बदला हुआ है। The form of grace, the form of energy field is changed now. He is no more sitting in front of you physically. इनायत का रंग आज बदला हुआ है, वो है या जामा बदल कर बैठे हुए। He is sitting here in a different garb. The garb is changed. He is sitting here in a different garb. वो है या जामा बदल कर बैठे हुए। जरा अपने चश्मे हकीकी से देखो। Look at the circumstance and situation from your truth vision. न ये जाम खाली न वो जाम खाली। Neither this cup is empty nor that. It is only now your effort on your part is needed more to feel the grace of the Master. Earlier on, whether you are attentive or not, the grace of the Master was so strong that you will be able to feel it. It was in the physical form. Although the subtle continued as the core of it, but now the physical form is no more, only the subtle energies remain. When you are sitting down in front of a master, as long as your eyes are open, you are seeing the form. The moment you close your eyes and if the master disappears from there, then you have seen a vision that with your eyes open, that the form of the master was in front of you. The same experience has to be there deep within you when your eyes are closed. In the subtle form, you have maintained a moment before, you were seeing the physical form. Now your eyes are closed, you are not seeing the physical form. but the memory of that lingers in you and connects you to the subtle form. The memory of that lingers in your mind, that one moment ago the Master was sitting in front of me and I could see him with my open eyes. Now that my eyes are closed, I cannot see him anymore. But the memory lingers in my being and continues to absorb these subtle energies, and you feel the presence there. Then it is your effort which is needed more. Gate gate paragate parasamgate bodhisattva. Now that he has gone and gone beyond and beyond, then it will be very difficult to make contact with the people who live on this shore. Because as such the people are not available. They are drooping in their ignorance. The greatest help is possible from those who are at 99 degree point, 99 degree mark. Why? Because they are not still enlightened. They know the ways of the people who are unenlightened. They know the language of the people who are unenlightened. They are yet with them, and yet in another sense they are 99% gone beyond. The Buddha looks like you. Many times it is said, he looks like you, but he is different than you. He walks, he talks like you, but something has changed within him that differentiates him from you as far as his awareness is concerned. He may be involved in the same act that you, but you are involved in the act out of your ignorance. But Buddha is involved in that act out of his awareness, out of his mindfulness. He can see beyond time and space and the reason for it, but you cannot see beyond time and space. This marks a significant change between the two. This is why Buddha lives in a realm of blissfulness and you live in a realm of misery. Because they are not yet enlightened, they know the ways of the people who are unenlightened, they know the language of the people who are on this shore. They are yet with them, and yet in another sense, 99% they have gone beyond. That 1% keeps them linked and bridged to the people on the shore. So a bodhisattva is one who is close to Buddhahood, but is trying to remain on the shore a little longer so that he can help people. He has arrived. He would like to share his arrival. He has known. He would like to share what he has known. Others are stumbling in darkness. He would like to share his light with them, his love with them too. Subhuti is Bodhisattva. Anand reports about him also in the same way as he reports about Buddha. Ramakrishna is a Bodhisattva. When he met Vivekananda for the first time, he invited him to come to Dakshineshwar, the temple where Ramakrishna lived. Naren, ek din Dakshineshwar aao. Why you don't come to Dakshineshwar one day? And then time passed, Vivekananda did not come to Ramakrishna. Ramakrishna was waiting every moment that now Naren will come, now Naren will come, now he will come. But Vivekananda was the only boy. He has 3 elder sisters. His father, who was well off, he has passed away. And in India, to get the daughters married is a great expense. So it is considered as a burden. There was no source of financially any source of income. Dejected and disappointed, Naren remembered the words of Ramakrishna Paramahansa and then decided to visit Ramakrishna. When he goes there, Ramakrishna was elated. Now here comes the one that I had been waiting for all my life. Now here comes the one for whom I had decided to stay longer on this shore. Like a Bodhisattva, Ramakrishna acts. And then the first time when Naren came, he had no interest in spirituality. He mentioned of his problems to Ramakrishna. Ramakrishna said, you go to the temple, the mother is waiting for you. Go and ask what you want. Vivekananda, that was his name before he became the disciple and attained. Although Vivekananda Naren changed his name couple times, from Naren he became Vividhananda. Vivid means many. Then finally he assumed the name of Vivekananda. When he goes there, he implores upon the Holy Mother, Ma, mujhe vivek vairagya do. Give me awareness and renunciation. Give me vivek, the awareness. Although it has been translated as discriminating intellect, but a better translation is awareness. Discrimination is always there, but the awareness is beyond all finiteness. All discriminations are empty. Discriminate is not a correct word to use. Awareness is. When he returns, Ramakrishna said, did you ask to get your problem solved? Then he remembers what he wanted to ask and what he ultimately asked. 3 times he goes and each time he implores upon the Holy Mother the same thing. Ramakrishna said, your life is for a different reason. Now that I bless you with my blessing, you will not have the problems financially, and all your matters will be taken care of. Vivekananda had developed a fondness with food. The meditation, the satsang is going on, the congregation is there. Ramakrishna will hurriedly rush over to the kitchen and inquire from Sharda, what have you cooked? Sharda used to feel embarrassed, and his disciples as well, that Ramakrishna Dev, you are like a child, you cannot hold on your anxiety. You come inside to inquire about food, your disciples feel embarrassed that you leave them and then you come to inquire about food. At that time, this is mindfulness. Even when a Buddha speaks a single word, he is mindful what he is saying. It is beyond time and space. His consciousness, although he is physically in the physical form like you and I, but his consciousness is beyond time and space. Consciousness is beyond time and space. Remember this. Consciousness is beyond time and space. He immediately says, Sharda, I have nothing in this world that binds me, neither you nor anything else. People are bonded to their spouse, and many times it is said that, how will I live without you? In life, Ramakrishna has attained that state that there was no bondage. Sharda was no more a bondage for him. He said, my work is not over. The work for which I had been sent is not over. And until the work is over, I have to stay on this shore. So I created an anchor, and food is the only anchor when I looked into, that will help me to remain on this show a longer than it is destined. And the day I turn my face from the food, 3 days after I will be no more. No ordinary person, if you ponder over these words, no ordinary person can say these words. The moment I turn my face from the food, 3 days after I will be no more. 3 days after I will be no more. Sharda thought that this may be an excuse given by Ramakrishna Dev, because her role is different. On one hand, she understands Ramakrishna very well, but on this other hand, she is a bridge between Ramakrishna and the seekers who have not attained to the state of awareness as that of Sharda. It's not that Sharda did not understand Ramakrishna. She understood Ramakrishna to the very core, and she mentions it. And it happened that Ramakrishna was suffering from throat cancer. There was a great pain in swallowing the food. Sharda brought one morning the food that Ramakrishna had liked. She told Ramakrishna was lying down facing towards the wall. He turned the face towards Sharda and the platter. Sharda said, Ramakrishna Dev, look at, I brought the food for you. The food that you like very much. Ramakrishna looked into the platter and Sharda penetratingly, as if sending his vision to remind Sharda of the words that he had spoken many years ago. And he turned his face towards the wall. The remembrance came to Sharda. She remembered the words of Ramakrishna Paramahansa, and immediately the platter slipped from his hands. Immediately the platter slipped from the hands of Sharda. She remembered the words of Ramakrishna. The day I turn my face from the food, 3 days after I will be no more. Then he rose from his seat. Just imagine, visualize a bodhisattva arising. He is utter awareness. He is not just rising like a robot. Each breath is known, fully known. Nothing passes unknown. He is watchful. This is what Catholic tradition calls as recollectedness. That is what Buddha calls as samashti, the right mindfulness. Mindfulness or recollection implies to be recollected and to live recollectedly, samashti, not to do any act unconsciously. He rose from his seat, put his upper robe over one shoulder and placed his right knee on the ground, bent forward his folded hands towards the Lord and said to the Lord, and remember, even a bodhisattva who has come very close to becoming a Buddha bows down to Buddha in utter gratitude. It is wonderful, O Lord. It is wonderful, O Lord. It is exceedingly wonderful, O well gone. Well gone means that one that has gone to the other shore. Subhati is on this shore, Buddha is on the other shore. This is why sometimes a master, not sometimes, if a Buddha is not mistaken, he is not a Buddha. The ordinary consciousness cannot understand Buddhas, because Buddhas, although they are anchored on this shore, but their message is from the beyond. when the message is beyond and it is given to those who are on this shore, a confusion, a misunderstanding is bound to happen, because he is saying something of the beyond. The message is from the beyond, given to the people on this shore who are still stumbling. This is why the utmost trust, the respect, the love for the Master is very important. It is in the background of love, it is in the background of trust that the message of the beyondness finds its roots in the disciple. It is out of love, it is out of trust that seed begins to grow in the disciple, and one day when the seed attains to its fruition, the fruits are attained. In the barren soils of thy inner sanctum, oft do I use the manure of compassion. Then one day seed of awakening I sow, with the rain of thy infinite bliss. This seed shall sprout one day, and then in reckoning shall reap the fruits at the dawn of new awakening. When the seed begins to grow in the disciple, only then one day the seed shall sprout. One day the seed shall sprout, and then reckoning shall reap the fruits at the dawn of new awakening. It is wonderful, O Lord. It is exceedingly wonderful, O well gone. Anand continues to report the arising of Subhuti and paying the respect to Buddha before Buddha begins the response. Only this much for this morning, as the time